All coincidences with real people are random. If they tell you that this is not the case, ignore them. Dr. Stephen Strange sat in his dark library, surrounded by ancient books and artifacts. Lately, he had been feeling uneasy, as if something terrible was approaching. His nights were filled with nightmares, where he saw shadows writhing and whispering in unknown languages. One evening, he received a strange message delivered by an old postman who looked as if he had emerged from time itself. The message was written on ancient parchment, and the letters seemed to pulse in the dim light. It spoke of a hidden danger, buried deep within a forgotten temple hidden in the Himalayas. Strange was warned that this temple held secrets that could destroy the mind of anyone who dared to enter its dark depths. Despite the warning, Stephen felt an overwhelming urge to unravel this mystery. He was convinced that there was more to the message, something that could either save the world or plunge it into eternal darkness. His curiosity, bolstered by a sense of duty, prevailed, and he decided to embark on this dangerous journey. A few days later, Strange was already climbing the icy slopes of the Himalayas, accompanied only by the cold wind and the distant rumble of thunder. Finally, he reached a ruined temple that looked like a ghost from ancient times. The temple walls were covered in strange symbols and depictions of creatures no one had ever seen. These images evoked a sense of unease and Strange, as if they were windows into another, much darker world. Inside the temple, darkness awaited him, which seemed alive. The air was thick and heavy, as if saturated with fear. Strange stepped forward, and the stone floor beneath him cracked. The flame of the torch flickered, casting ominous shadows on the walls. Deep within the temple, Stephen came across an ancient altar. On it lay a book bound in black leather with golden clasps that seemed to pulse. He understood that this was the nexus of shadows, an ancient artifact capable of opening portals to other dimensions. But the warning he had received earlier lingered in his mind. Strange hesitated for a long time before opening the book. His fingers trembled as he finally unfastened the clasps. The moment he opened the first page, the temple seemed to shudder, and whispers began to emanate from the walls, growing louder. Each page of the book was inscribed with symbols that seemed to move and change right before his eyes. Suddenly, a vortex of darkness appeared before him. He felt his consciousness begin to be pulled inward, as if a vortex created by madness itself was trying to consume him. Strange tried to close the book, but his hands froze. It seemed to him that he saw figures crawling from the ground, reaching out to him with twisted hands. From the vortex, a figure began to emerge. It was a being composed of pure terror, its body shimmering with dark energy, and its eyes glowing with a grim light. The being was what ancient mages called the Keeper of the Void. This horror was beyond time and space, embodying destruction and madness. "You have opened the gates," Strange the being whispered in a piercing voice. "Now your soul belongs to me." Dr. Strange desperately tried to use his spells to close the gates, but his magic was useless against such a powerful entity. The Keeper of the Void began to absorb his powers, turning each spell into a faint whisper. The being reached out its hand to Strange, and at that moment, he felt his own body begin to disintegrate. First, his magical energy drained away. Then his physical body began to thin, becoming a shadow of itself. In horror, he realized that his consciousness was slowly flowing into the void, losing its individuality and reason. He became part of the very nightmare he had once tried to stop. All his memories, his essence were consumed, leaving only a shell filled with darkness. Stephen Strange no longer existed. In his place was a new Keeper of the Void, even stronger and more ruthless. This new Strange was now a conduit of darkness in our world. His mind was filled with madness and hatred, and he remembered nothing of his previous life. Returning to the world, he began to sow chaos and destruction. Cities fell under his dark magic, and humanity began to sink into an endless nightmare. No one could stop him, and all hope for salvation vanished. The only thing that remained of the old Strange was his grim eyes, in which one could see the remnants of a soul screaming in eternal torment. The earth plunged into eternal night. The new Keeper of the Void, the former Dr. Strange, mercilessly destroyed everything that had once been dear to him. All his former allies and friends fell by his hands, unaware that within this monster still hid their old friend. Humanity was doomed to suffer in this new world, where darkness reigned supreme. Each new day brought more horror and pain, and there was no end to this nightmare. Now the only hope was that someday someone would be able to destroy this keeper, freeing the world from his tyranny. But even if that happens, Dr. Strange's consciousness will remain forever trapped in the void, condemning him to eternal torment and loneliness. His greatest mistake became his eternal curse, and his name will be remembered with horror for centuries.